Um, so we are calling this Leave No Doubt Fatherhood. And, me and you have been friends now for a long time. I got 4 kids, you have 3 kids. Um, and we talk a lot about being parents, being dads, right? And so I was hoping that this episode would just lay out the groundwork for people listening. Like, why do we feel compelled to do this? Why do we think we can do this, you and I? And kind of the topics that you and I feel like are really important for dads to know about.
Yeah.
So we can kind of go wherever we want, but like we were talking about, maybe like quick introductions, right? So my name is Cole James. Uh, and I'm 44 years old. I'm married to a gal named Ashley. We've been married for over 20 years. I have 4 kids. I
Dang,
have
20 years.
yeah, yeah,
Dang.
yeah, yeah. I think right around there. Pretty close, but
Crazy.
we may be over. But anyway, and then we have a 12-year-old boy, a 10-year-old boy, an 8-year-old girl, and a 5-year-old boy. So we got four, and yeah, and like you, I'm only starting to get sleep now after 12 years. I own a company called the Grief Recovery Institute. Our whole business is about helping people with unresolved emotional pain from their past. Long story short, most people, when they think about grief, they think about death. But we've actually kind of discovered over the last 50 years in this work that there's like over 40 different life events that are grief. And we're kind of dealing with levels of grief every day, and if not every day, certainly throughout the year, and we can be emotionally complete or incomplete with people, events, relationships, marriages, right? Our parents, and that incompleteness we would just call grief. But
Yeah.
again, I think a lot of people don't really connect with that word unless it's death. So another way to put it is just like, am I emotionally complete with my father? Am I
Yeah.
emotionally complete with my wife? And the truth is, we're never totally emotionally complete with anybody.
Yep.
But for our context, it's like, do I feel like I have a good marriage? Do I feel like I have a good relationship with my children, right? Or is there a lot of emotional incompleteness there because of
Yeah.
events from the past and or just my childhood or whatever I was bringing to the table. So anyway, again, we're in later episodes we hope to help guys out with that specifically,
Yep.
but real briefly, that's kind of how I earn a living. And then we both live in Idaho, right? And we both enjoy outdoor stuff. So I love hiking. I love hunting. I love boat life, right, in the summer. I love baseball.
We're 1 month out.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then it's a short 2 month window
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
when we get it. So anyway, I'm just all about just trying to be the best dad I can. I have plenty of flaws. I've had plenty of flaws in the past I've overcome. I'm dealing with plenty of flaws, today in this moment. But if you were to ask me, do I think I'm a good dad? Do I think I'm a good husband? I would tell you, yeah. And
I'd
and
agree.
it and it thank you. And it's not one of those things where that happened overnight, right? That was
Yeah.
with intention. That was with like sometimes very, very like brutal self accountability, friends calling me out,
Yep.
friends inspiring me, right? Or just me being like, hey, is this really like how I want to come to my marriage? Or is this really how I want to be with my kids? Or is this the example I want to be for my kids, right? And so I've worked my butt off, to like, uh, again, to be the best I can be today. And there's a ton of more work to do. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. Passing it over to you, Sam
I
Trapkin.
was going to say, brutal self accountability is really the origin of this, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
literally driving back from Seattle a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
the Leave No Doubt title came to me because I was driving thinking about, if I died today, like, would I
Mm-hmm.
be happy with the example I set? And the
Right.
answer was like, no.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I was like, I want to leave no doubt about the example that I set. Like, what would have to happen to do that?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it was brutal self accountability of just being like, I'm not happy with a lot of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, man. And yeah, that concept, when you texted me that title, I was like, yep, that's perfect. Because it's like that's really what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
In my line of work, I unfortunately I know that no one is promised tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And people die all the time that weren't supposed to die at that age or
Dude.
be,
Yeah.
for that reason. And it's like it's heartbreaking, but it's the truth. And So when you said that, it was like, yeah, that's absolutely it, because we're not promised tomorrow. So if you know, I think really the genesis of this was, if I was to die tomorrow or you were to die
Yeah.
tomorrow, would we be able to say, yeah, we did everything we could? Would our
Right.
wives be able to say that? Would our kids be able to say that? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, everyone kind of gets a vote in that answer, right? So, yeah, that's the core of this, right? Is like, I have today, right? I have this moment. What am I doing to be the best I need to be for everybody?
And it's a good unifying concept that hopefully everyone can agree on because we're talking about fatherhood. So I think when people think of that, they think of like man podcast or like, like brotherhood podcast or like warriors. And it's like, that's not what we're doing.
Yep, yep.
I think the things that we want to be true about fatherhood, hopefully everyone would agree with.
Yeah, yeah, totally right. Like,
Yeah.
we've both kind of cringed at, like, we're going to do Navy SEAL training on the beach, right? And
Right.
that'll check all the boxes
Yeah.
and fix you, and it's like, look, uh, I'm not really, like, I'm not trying to throw shade at that. Like, that maybe that's an aspect that you need as a guy, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, it's such a caricature of like the nuances of what being a guy
And I
is.
think it attracts the right, like there's certain people that resonate with that. Like I kind of like that stuff, honestly, but
Yeah,
it's like, that definitely pushes a lot of people away.
yeah,
So yeah, that was a big part of it too, is like, we want to talk about this stuff, but not have it be, I'm a warrior,
yeah,
like, whatever. It's like, I'm carrying a freaking baby on my chest and
right.
I'm eating like Starbucks egg bites. Like I'm not a warrior. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Right at this moment.
right. Yeah,
It's not my
exactly. It's
goal.
like me and you both have like walking treadmill desks. So
Yeah.
that's like the reality of our day to day. And
Yeah.
again, right? It's like, I get it. Like, we're all searching for things to not feel like we're in a cubicle every day, right? We want to do things like that,
Yeah.
and we'll cover those in this podcast too, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that you pursue and I pursue to kind of check those boxes,
Yeah.
but that's not everything, right? That's not the complete package for a guy.
Cole does live on a sick homestead. He didn't mention that.
Yes, yes, that
So he's
is
checking
that is
some
true.
boxes there.
That is true. I don't have a tractor yet though, so, which is even cooler because we got to do it by hand mostly.
Like a
The stuff.
lawnmower. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, moving like hay bales and heavy
Oh,
equipment.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
like, we don't have. Anyway, I
We'll
digress.
do an episode on a homestead setup
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Because really, are you a dad if you aren't providing eggs for your family?
and our family as well.
Yeah. So
Um,
anyway, but what? Yeah, Sam. Let me ask you, because again, like, we've been brainstorming this for a while, and I love your ideas. You're definitely the idea man of the two of us. I would give you credit for. So, but we came up with like the core kind of pillars that we think are like the topics we need to address and address regularly to evolve again as dads.
yeah.
Do you want to cover any of those?
Yeah, I think the big two that the others kind of come out from, I mean, physical fitness and health and readiness is a huge one.
Yep.
So I will be on, obviously a soapbox about this a bunch, but I think physical fitness is one of those things that just impacts every part of your life.
Yes.
I've just seen it clearly in my own life, but other people's lives over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really about, that's the thing people don't get is they think, oh, Sam's working out because he wants to get abs or biceps or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, that's like the fifth thing on my list. It's
Yep.
like, I know my mood's going to be better. Like, the way I think changes, the way I feel changes,
Yep.
and it just completely transforms someone's life. And I think
Yep.
that's so important to set that example for kids. Emotional, well-being and resilience and completeness, as you said, that's
Yep.
kind of all your work and work that I think everyone needs to do. I need to do. But
Yeah.
if you think about kind of your physical health and well-being and your emotional health and well-being, you're touching a lot. You're covering a lot of surface there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot in the kind of skill building department,
Mm-hmm.
skills that I grew up in an urban environment,
Yep.
right?
Me
Like
too.
I can't do a lot
Mm-hmm.
outside. You can do a lot more than me. So I think skills that I want to be able to pass down to my kids, stuff that that you've taught your kids, is a big one for me too.
Yeah.
Also, just like getting your stuff together for if you did die.
Yeah.
Like I work in estate planning technology, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm very close to what happens when someone dies and the mess you can leave behind and the pain you can leave
Yeah.
behind.
Mm-hmm.
So man, just like I'm going through this personally, it's like getting like just basic stuff in order, like your documents and insurance stuff. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, are you in a good spot if you did die?
Hmm.
Are you going to be kind of leaving your family, you know, in a tough spot? So, I don't know. Those are the big ones that come to mind for me. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the main ones that we were like, if you check those, you check those boxes, you're covering a lot of ground as a father. You know, I don't think we in our society now, right? I was born in like 81. When were you born?
86.
Yeah, 86. Like we're born in the 80s, right? It's like we're not thinking like in generational increments, right? In America nowadays, right?
Right.
It's like, and it's, but I love that. Like I had an example in my dad that was, he was like, I grew up poor. I don't want you guys to be that way. I don't want your grandkids to be like, he
Yeah.
talked about generational wealth. I saw him trying to figure out how to make sure, like, again, you know, children he'll never meet are going to be set up in our family, right? And I was like, man, I'm grateful for that leadership because it's like, you know, how many of us as sons and dads get that, right?
Yeah.
Had that example, and so, you know, when you were like, hey, we need to talk about this, I was like, 100%. Like, is it buttoned up, or will your wife be in a complete quagmire, right?
Yep.
Already grieving your death, right? And then also trying to figure out like the paperwork and am I
Yeah.
set up or not, or like all those kind of things. It's like you got to check that box. So yep, agree with that one. And then obviously, like you're saying, on a day to day basis, I am dealing with women who are heartbroken over their marriage because of their men. I'm dealing with men who are heartbroken over their marriage because
Yeah.
of their wives. I'm dealing with people who have a living mother or father, but the unfinished emotional pain from their childhood has really limited the quality of their life. And I see almost a combination of all that unfinished business again affecting their marriages, affecting how they parent,
Yeah.
affecting how their kids view them. And it's like it's just something that I'm passionate about getting the word out, especially to guys, because you know, the people we work with 80% women. That's who's willing to do our work, right? And it's
Yeah.
like grief recovery, and we're doing emotional work, and so it makes sense that women are more open to doing that. But like I've seen hundreds of men go through this, and it's like those are the people I really want to help. Being a guy, right? Losing friends, you know, husbands, fathers to suicide,
Yeah.
like seeing stuff build up in them and them not know how to complete stuff or process, you know, the pain of whatever it is they're processing, and check out with a gun, you know, or you know, a rope or what, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's like I've lost a lot of friends to drugs, to alcohol, to suicide.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure you have too. It's like we lose a lot of guys to stuff, and often part of that roadmap for them is like not knowing how to deal
Yeah.
with their stuff.
Well, you're hitting on another big point of this, which is this work doesn't reach men a lot of the time
Mm-hmm.
because of the way it's perceived or the work is perceived, kind of
Yeah.
like it doesn't have the right, doesn't feel like it's for them.
Yeah.
And so when you think about all these different topics, it's like I have personally struggled to find people that I like in these different areas that I
Mm-hmm.
can really emulate the whole picture.
Yeah.
Because what me and you have in common is we want to be really well rounded, right?
Yep.
I want to be in shape, like emotionally in good shape, have skills, be able to pass down stuff to my kids, have a good, you know, marriage. And it's like I could find a good fitness influence maybe,
Yep.
but like that person's life is probably a train wreck outside of their fitness stuff.
Yep.
And so it's like
It's a great point.
take it across the board, right? Like
Yep.
fitness is a completely spoiled topic in industry basically. It
Mm-hmm.
just has off put the majority of people.
Yeah.
I would argue that, you know, like the grief work and the emotional work is the same way for guys, where it's like, oh, it's more of that's for women, that's not for me. You know,
Yep.
it's kind of they don't get the right delivery. So that's something I've always personally looked for and
Mm-hmm.
haven't really ever found.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. Yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to exploring this because I really have a passion to help people, you know, with that stuff. And like you said, it's not something that's explored enough with guys, frankly. And then going back to your first one, right? It's like, yes, one of the foundational keys in both of our opinion is physical fitness.
yeah,
And from that comes so many other things, right? That we'll explore these topics too, but there's a baseline, right? And we've talked about this as well, and it's like I think kind of frustrating for both of us. You know, there's these big podcasts, and they're talking about like the 20% gains, right? Like the
Right.
nuance stuff. Like,
Yeah.
no, dude, you need to be doing a cold plunge and then a sauna,
Yeah.
and then after that, like you need to have like,
Yeah.
some ayahuasca root to help you with your testosterone levels, and it's like,
Yeah.
but if you ask the person listening to that podcast, like, when's the last time
Yeah.
you straight up like hit the gym and
Yeah.
did some push-ups or some pull-ups, or can you do a pull-up? Like usually the answer is no.
Yep.
And so like that's the other thing is like, and I think both of us are consumers of podcasts. We're both listeners of podcasts. I
Massive
think,
consumers. Yeah.
yeah, between me and you, like we've really explored the
The
market,
dark corners of the internet.
the
Yeah.
dark corner of the internet and the podcast world, and
Yeah.
and there's great stuff. And but I think for us, the other thing is like the podcasting has evolved to where like the top podcasters, they're not really relatable anymore,
Totally.
right? Where it's like me and you are kind of like middle class dudes, like trying to raise a family in 2025, right? And
Yeah.
that's like gets weird when you try and do that. So
Yeah.
that was our other goal, is just trying to be relatable and not like that's the other thing we talked about. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like in this day and age, the people that I feel like really get promoted and pushed out there are people who are really good at like pretending that they
Marketing.
have all the answers.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like that's not really how the world works. And I think like the internet and life has really shown us that. It's like nobody's perfect, nobody has all the answers, and it's like but people that can deliver things with just total
Yeah.
certainty,
Yeah.
apparently enough people seem to like buy, oh, this person has figured it out, oh, they know everything. And it's like I think what I love about you and me is like we have the humility to kind of realize, no, like we're figuring this out just like everybody
Yeah.
else. And so I think that we bring that to the table.
Yeah. And it's also like we're not trying to be, influencers or something that we're not. Like we both are very happy with our lives. And it's not like I'm trying to, like with the fitness stuff as an example, with people doing like cold plunges and saunas and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is the stuff that works, like the way to actually do it, it's not that interesting. It's not that exciting to talk about. And there's not a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I will explain this in probably under an hour of like how to work out and kind of like the general things. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like all you need.
Yeah.
So the stuff that gets surfaced to the top, it's usually the most marketable
Yep.
stuff, right? So, I don't really feel like figuring that stuff out. It's not very exciting, but this like sauna thing sounds pretty cool. So like I'm gonna check that out,
Yep.
versus like, hey, this really boring stuff that you've probably heard before but haven't done. It's like, so I think that's a big factor in these topics too. Is just like we don't have the incentive to market this stuff.
Yeah.
So like we're not going to overcomplicate it.
Yep.
At least for the topics that we're going to cover. So I think that helps kind of peel back some of the kind of like smoke and mirrors that happens with some of these topics.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well said. And going back to what you said before, I think both of our critiques of the modern kind of like bro space podcast area is it's just really like it has become a caricature, right? It's like like this is our first episode, so we were like setting up the set, right? And I'm like, don't worry, Sam, I got it set up. And he's like, oh, do you have enough battle axes back there and stuff? And it's like that's really what it's become,
Yeah.
right? It's like and so we're aiming to kind of meet guys more in the middle where it's like, hey, I'm just kind of a regular dude. I kind of had a regular like childhood. I'm, late 20s, 30s, 40s, somewhere in there, and I got some kids, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to be a couple of guys that like have some experience in that space, and then bring some unique like professional skills to it to kind of just help guys be well-rounded,
Yeah.
right? Because I know, like, I've been really blessed to meet some like high level like heroes of the nation, right? And they're very, very inspiring, right? And I got nothing bad to say about those guys, right? But I want to make sure that those guys also have the skills when they're home to be able to emotionally communicate with their wife,
Yeah.
to be able to like, be able to go from here to like down here when they talk to their like 7-year-old boy or their 12-year-old girl, right? And I want that to be possible. And I think a lot of the time, these podcasts that are just like warrior podcasts, it's
Yeah.
like we're not covering that stuff. And it's like you may be super impressive to other dudes on the internet checking out your stuff, but it's like how, like is your what is your how does your wife feel about like the
Right.
relationship? You know, does she feel heard? Does she know that you kind of know how to meet her with what she needs, like from
Yeah.
that part, too, right? And again, it's not like this isn't like I don't think hopefully if you're listening you don't think I like fall into the fetal position in tears all the time, right? Like because I'm okay talking about emotions
Yeah.
doesn't mean that like it's like it's some ridiculous like again caricature on some like TV show sitcom about what that means to be a
Yeah.
guy that can be again I'm not I don't want to say in touch with their feelings because that is so so caricatured out, right? But
Cole is refreshingly emotionally intelligent though.
there you go. There you go.
Like if he didn't have that, I don't think we'd be friends. Like because you have kind of you balance it out. Like you have the kind of rugged physical outdoor side,
Hmm.
but then also the emotional intelligence.
Thank you.
And most people usually
Yep.
have one or the other, which is part of again like why we like doing this, right? Because it's kind of
Yeah.
like
That's
both are
what that's exactly it, right? That's what we're getting at. It's like if you check the hey, I really feel like I connect with like my wife on an emotional level, right? Then chances are there may be some physical
right.
fitness and like some of that growth to be had.
Yep.
And if you're like, no, 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 I'm like a SWAT guy for my local department, then maybe there's some emotional stuff to explore, right? Uh, that and I'm going to refer to my dad quite a bit in this podcast because he was a really good dude and a great guy, great man. And what I loved about him, he's a Marine Corps Vietnam combat veteran, right? So he had like the 1,000 yard stares at times, but then he could also be like so emotionally available to you if you needed to talk about, hey, I just broke up with my girlfriend, and he could go there and talk to you about that emotional thing.
Yeah.
And then he would also tell you like, hey, if a bully punches you, you need to go punch him tomorrow on the school on the schoolyard.
Yeah.
And that's and to me that was like, oh, okay, you need the whole spectrum
Hmm.
to be fully actualized as a guy. In my opinion, you need to have the whole scale. You need to flow all the way to caveman protector guy, and you need to flow all the way over to man, my daughter is safe coming to me talking about
Yeah.
feelings, right? Like how cool is that? Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's where we all have to just take an accurate assessment of ourselves and be like, where are we?
Yeah. I think we covered. I mean, basically the topics that we're getting into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're gonna have like there's big meaty stuff we want to talk about, like how to get into working out. As an example, I've done a
Mm-hmm.
ton of that. I've coached a ton of people to get into working out for the first time and stick with it. So there's kind of some meaty introductory type of stuff. Same with your work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
But man, yeah, I think these themes will probably have endless, potential to kind of tap into. But yeah, I think that's kind of again, it's the total picture that matters with this
Yep.
stuff, right? So it kind of on paper looks like a lot of different stuff, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really all around this wrapper of are we helping set a better example, right, for our
Yep.
kids?
Yep.
That's the unifying thread through all of it. Yeah.
So there's a lot of topics, but again, we will reserve the right to flow wherever we think we need to kind of
Yeah.
cover the topics at fatherhood that need to be addressed. But those are the core ones,
Oh,
right?
you just reminded me too. There's one other big thread that I think I've been looking for and haven't found, and a big inspiration for this was all the like I'm doing sauna, ice bath, 2 hour morning routine type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these guys don't have kids,
Yes, good point.
especially young kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's cool. You do like a 3 hour journaling ice bath thing. Like I would love to do that, but I can't even like get out of my room right now without like my 5 year old waking up and like it's like hard to make time for this stuff.
Yes, you mean you can't sleep 10 hours a day, Sam,
Yeah.
because it's good for you?
Yeah, it's like people talking about sleep quality. It's like, dude, I don't even measure my sleep because there's nothing to measure.
Yeah.
It's just a disaster. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? So it's like, yeah, I think a lot of these topics get lost in these kind of idealized versions that, man, as soon as you have kids, especially young kids, you're just like, okay, well, none of that applies to me
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have time for any of that.
Yep. Yep.
And that the person telling me that is either like, in a bad family situation, they don't have kids, they're not married, like whatever the case is.
Yep.
Kids are clearly not a factor in their life.
Yes.
So like that's another thing is I feel very strongly that a lot of these core things, fitness as an example, is attainable for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how many kids you have or how young they are, or how busy you are, like there's a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
there's versions of all this stuff that is attainable for dads. And I think, again, the delivery of, hey, I'm just going to assume that you're like a 20-year-old single guy in like LA or something as my audience,
Yep.
you just totally lose that whole demographic. And so those, I think dads who need to hear a lot of that stuff, they don't hear it because it's just like, yeah, well, that's cool, you know, whatever, not to beat up like Andrew Huberman as an example. Like,
Uh-huh.
I think he's sick, but it's just like, that's cool that you do that, man. But like, you know, like my life's completely different than yours.
Yes.
And I can't relate to that. Or David Goggins, you know what I mean? It's just
Hmm.
like cool that you like run for 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
it's like, I can't do that. Like that's not applicable to my life right now.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest here, right? There is a certain level of self-obsession that comes with all that stuff, right?
Totally. It's all about me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I would love to run on the beach in Malibu like every day, you know, but it's like, but I actually like would much prefer having a wife and four kids that like
Yeah.
really love me. But like I have to also understand that like a large portion of my day is serving them,
Yeah.
right? And then if I don't have that skill set or I haven't worked on my self-centeredness enough to like understand that, then I need to do some work around that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's been definitely part of my story. Like yeah, I definitely have the genetics to just want to run on the beach in Malibu by myself. And like I've had to beat that out of
Yeah.
myself, right? And it's like um and so yeah, that's another thing that we just kind of we were watching a lot of podcasts evolve, and at first we were like on board, and we they were relatable, and then they started drifting off into these far corners of like just kind of like me, let me like obsess on my blood levels and my
Yeah. I mean,
health
that's
and
the meaning of those things has to change and it does change. Right. So once you have
hmm.
kids, it's like if you're going to do ice baths or like sauna, like you better have a reason to do it that benefits your family.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, it's all about you. So I think like the way that you reframe fitness as an example, it's like I do that more for my family than myself at this
Yes.
point, you
Yes.
know? And so it's like a lot of this stuff has to take on that new meaning. And
Hmm.
when the person you're watching is just talking about it for like their own health and their own benefit and their own longevity and their own happiness, it's
Yeah.
like I'm not in that situation right now where I'm the most important thing
Yep.
in my life,
Yeah.
you know?
And let me be clear. Like neither of us are not about saunas and ice baths. I actually you said that and it made me think. I actually have two guys that I know that are both dads I respect, and both of them are doing ice baths and saunas to help with their back problems that they've had
For
with like
sure. Yeah.
service to like the military and or law enforcement, right?
Oh,
And
I
it's
mean,
like
that stuff's awesome.
yeah, and they're doing it to serve their family. But you know, but again, right? You know, the gist of this is there's a lot of focus nowadays on me in a lot of these podcasts.
Those people you mentioned are probably also working out though.
Both of them are.
So,
Both of them are.
so that's the
Absolutely.
key thing. Like, I wouldn't feel guilt maybe doing that stuff because, like, yeah, my body's beat up. Like,
Hmm.
I've been skateboarding and lifting weights and getting hit in the face and jumping off stages my entire life.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, like I need to do that stuff. Maybe
Yep.
like
Yep.
there's a reason to do it, but I'm not like on my couch scrolling TikTok and then going into an ice bath. You know what I
That's
mean?
not the baseline. The
Right.
baseline is, like you said, both those guys, or me and you, you know, we're spending time in the gym, like lifting heavy weight.
Yeah.
That I mean, that's the bottom line, right? It's like you can't short circuit this stuff. You can't get a shortcut through some like the new supplement. You can't buy the the some breathing technique. It's like there's very like basic stuff that frankly most of us Americans are not doing. Like if we
Yeah.
look at the obesity rate among dads out there, I don't know what it is, but I guarantee you it's not good.
It's most, bro. It's just most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at the testosterone levels with most guys our age and below, it's only getting worse, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's really hard to operate as a dad that way. It's really hard to be inspiring as a dad that way,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure I'm going to talk about this throughout the podcast too, but I help coach some of my son's baseball teams, right? And so I have a lot of examples of coaches where you look and you're like, dang, that dude's inspiring. And then you look at this coach and you're like, ooh, like,
Yeah.
and so it's everywhere. It's all
I mean,
around.
that's another perfect example of like why fitness stuff is about more than just the physical.
Hmm.
I never hear people talk about this, but the way that people, I think, the way that you treat people that are in better shape and the way that I think people see you and your family sees you and just like like you are having a different life experience.
Yes.
And people are not in a rush to say that, and that may never
Hmm.
be said out loud, but
Yeah.
it's true, man. Like I
Yep.
think being in shape has been a factor in my entire life since I've been an adult. Like my
Yep.
career, like everything I can think of, I think it was a factor that I was in good shape,
Yes.
and I think it's a factor in our kids, obviously marriage, you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like, yeah, it's not just about looking good, well, like, so I think that's an important point, which is like, no one's going to tell that coach, hey man, like kids are looking at you differently because you're not in shape,
Yep.
but that's true,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you're right. I think both of us are of that same mindset. Like almost the last probably like benefit of lifting weights, because that's really what we're both advocates of. Like before anything else, right? It's like lifting weights. But neither of us are like obsessed on the physique or what we look
Right.
like. Now I will say this, like I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but like Sam is freakishly strong for his size. And so at some point we're gonna have to just throw a B-roll up of what you can bench because it like makes me very sad inside sometimes.
Nice.
But yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like sometimes you'll be like kind of running point on the podcast, and I'm going to be asking questions and learning. Sometimes I'll be running point on the podcast, and you'll be learning because again, we're just bringing some things to the table that we feel like we are experts in, right?
Yep.
And hopefully that resonates and people can and take of that what they will and start incorporating some of that. Like that's the other goal that we have, right? Is like we want a lot of this podcast to be action based to where we'll in the show notes we'll link to stuff, or we'll say, hey, this is what we hope you get started with if this like touched a nerve with you. But we will try and really like have this, we want you to come away from this podcast like having some actions to take, not just like consume, 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 because that's another thing that we have both done, right? It's like, yeah, we can get some great insights on podcasts and stuff, but it's like we want to be doers, right? So that's I think another thing that we're going to try and focus on is just like, okay, what type of actions can we take? So this episode's kind
No,
of,
no
hey,
action, no
overview.
actions here.
Yeah, yeah, just hit the like button. That's the only subscribe. That's the only action on this one. But we're going to start going and really have like, we want to give practical advice of like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we tried. This is what seems to work. This is what doesn't. Like both of us have access to a lot of other dads. Like between our lives, and we have a pretty large network of other guys that are inspiring, that are making mistakes, and we're learning. It's like that whole thing. So we're going to be
I
bringing
have a
some of those
huge
guys on.
degenerate network if we want to tap into that. So.
Me too. Me too. So we'll be gleaning information sometimes and covering other topics or bringing other guys on and that we think have really good like kind of to angles. But the point is like you can't just be like warrior guy like carrying telephone poles on the beach, right? And you can't just be like emotional guy fetal position crying, right? But like the goal is like can we kind of like hit everything on that spectrum when
Yep.
necessary?
And
And
also,
it
dude,
ain't easy.
we didn't talk about this either, but just basic stuff like if there's an emergency or something happens, like just having the right stuff at your house. Like, do you like this is applicable to me? Like, I straight up didn't have like a winter coat,
Hmm.
like, so if the power went out, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm like wrapping myself in blankets or having to use a generator because I don't have a freaking winter coat.
Yep.
So, like,
Yep.
there's basic readiness stuff that you should definitely have dialed in when you have a family that I
Hmm.
just like, that was a huge blind spot for me. And that topic is obviously like your immediate, like in like Alex Jones territory if you start talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like, dude, like, hopefully everyone that has kids, like, and like a family wants to be able to like check some basic boxes.
Yep.
Some of us have more boxes checked than others, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
it's just like, that's a real topic, dude. It's not a political or cultural thing. It's just like, yeah, you want to have some stuff dialed in.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave no doubt, right? That the title of the podcast is Leave No Doubt Fatherhood. And absolutely, you have to check those boxes as a dad. That is absolutely
Yeah.
one of your roles. No, regardless of how the media wants to paint it or anything like that, it's like what matters most. Like, do are your children set up to be safe, to be protected?
Yeah.
Like, period. Is your wife like so? I think pretty much any guy, like any dad's going to relate to that, right? And then we can, like you said, we can just put the Alex Jones, like, territory
That's like
over here.
episode 100 and beyond.
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry.
We'll get into
Don't.
some like some good topics.
Yeah, yeah.
Some yeah. But
Cool.
I didn't do an intro actually. I just realized that.
Oh, well, do it. Do it now. Do it now. We'll cut it in earlier.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sam, obviously, married to my wife Raquel for 7 years, been together for 12. We have three kids, 5, 3, and 1. North Idaho, obviously. I grew up on the East Coast, DC area, Baltimore. Professionally, work in tech. So I helped start a company back in 2019 in the financial tech space that I'm still doing. It's a venture-backed company. It's a Series B company. We have about 100 people now. It's around estate planning, which we'll talk about, which is a very relevant topic for this. But we were early in the kind of digit digitization,
Yeah. It's a
digitizing.
word.
Yeah, estate planning's a lot of paper documents, so we
Yeah.
were one of the first to kind of digitize that and make it more visual,
Yep.
more tech driven.
Yep.
So we were early in that space. Yeah, I've done that. I've for 6 years. I've worked with a lot of close friends there. Let's see. So I that a lot of friends that came from the hardcore world. So I grew up kind of in the hardcore punk rock scene, metal music. Like I started playing guitar when I was 13.
Yep.
Played in a bunch of bands. Still playing a band that's pretty active, or not pretty active, but semi-active.
Yeah.
Play shows a couple times a year. That band's called Trapped Under Ice. It's like a hardcore band.
Okay.
And then let's see, fitness stuff we covered.
Yep.
Big part of my life.
Yep.
I've helped a lot of people get into fitness. That's been a passion project of mine for years, but I've probably helped hundreds of people at this point go from like I've never worked out before to I'm now working out.
Nice.
Specifically, guys like us that are kind of like this age range with families, with busy jobs where they're kind of like I don't have time.
Yep.
I don't want to join Gold's Gym.
Yep.
So a lot of guys working out from home. So that's been a big thread for me. But yeah, I think that covers the big stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. My 12-year-old a couple of weeks ago, we saw one of Sam's shows on YouTube, and so he's in the he's in the hardcore world, like he said, and he's up on stage, and my son, who only knows Sam, like very buttoned up, like corporate guy, he's watched this as a show, and he turns to me and he goes, "I'll never look at Sam again the same." Um, yeah, but again, I love that, dude. I love that because again, you have range as a guy, right?
Too
And
much.
it's
Yeah,
like,
too much maybe.
no, no too, there ain't. Well, some maybe there could be too much, but in your case, there's not too much, right? It's like that's what you want. Like I've seen how you show up for your wife and for your children. I've seen. That's another thing too, right? It's like just I think this is important to get into, like our wives met at like this forest school thing, right? Where like the wives would go with the kids to this forest school thing, and they like all vibed out. And as the husbands, you kind of get lumped in events together,
Yeah.
and we kind of like hung out and we're all like kind of assessing each other and stuff. But we were hanging out quite a bit, right? And it's like, so we've watched each other, like we've really seen like that we it's not like we met like 3 weeks ago and we're like, hey, you're a good dad, you're a good dad too. Like we've known each
Yeah.
other for years now, and we've got to really kind of like assess stuff. And so I'm really grateful to have met you and become your friend.
Likewise. Yeah.
And I can tell you, like, and we've covered this before, but it's like I'm grateful that I have a friend like you because I feel like you help me up my game, right? And like you're the type of friend where it's not like you're like, oh man, he had that success in his life. Like, we're like, I'm happy for you, you're happy for me, and we are wanting to elevate each other. Like, you know what I mean? We want to kind of help up each other's games and inspire each other in different ways. And that's another thing too. Like if you don't have that as a dad, like you need to go out and get that,
Yeah.
right? You need to go out and find other guys that are inspiring to you, right, in different ways. And maybe you're inspiring to
Yeah.
them in other ways. But building a community of guys. And I know,
Yeah.
and again, that's really cliche right now too. But I think it's almost like you kind of have to be aware of what you're looking for, or you can kind of like enamored isn't the right word, but you can kind of almost look for the wrong type of guys that are like, oh man, that guy's really cool. Like, so I don't know. There's work to be done, even I think, to assess and find other guys that like help inspire you and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
know. Cool. So, I think that's a good place to end this one. Again, if you're listening, we appreciate it. Our goal is to bring value and shared experience here, on a very regular basis. And I think we want to hear from you, right? We want feedback. We want to hear kind of what is helpful, what topics you want to hear about. All that kind of stuff is helpful for us. And we'll get going from there. So, again, if you're listening, please subscribe, like, tell other guys that you think could use some of this work, and we'll get on to episode 2 very, very soon.